The message glowed mockingly on my phone screen. James, consider this your wake-up call to life. I've taken the early flight home. Marriage shouldn't feel like a comfortable prison. Maybe now you'll finally learn to live a little. Sarah. I stared at the empty hotel bed beside me, still perfectly made from housekeeping the day before. Sarah hadn't even slept here last night. She'd planned this, probably booked her separate flight home, while I was enjoying what I thought was a romantic dinner with my wife of 12 years. Outside my window, the Finnish winter painted everything in pristine white. Ruka Ski Resort was waking up, early morning skiers already dotting the slopes like colorful confetti against the snow. I'd been looking forward to our last day here, even though skiing wasn't really my thing. Now I was stranded, 4,000 miles from home, with a return ticket for a flight that had departed 3 hours ago. Sir, the front desk clerk looked at me sympathetically. We can help you book a new flight, but with the winter festival starting tomorrow, the earliest availability would be next week. Next week. 7 days in a ski resort when I could barely manage the beginner slopes. 7 days to contemplate how my supposedly stable marriage had just imploded in the Finnish wilderness. I'll take it, I said, handing over my credit card. What choice did I have? The good news, she offered kindly, is that we have plenty of availability for ski lessons. You mentioned yesterday you were a beginner. I nodded, remembering Sarah's constant teasing about my cautious approach to the slopes. Too calculating, she'd said, just like everything else in your life. Our advanced instructor has an opening this morning, the clerk continued. Helena Virtanen. She's excellent with beginners. The name meant nothing to me then. I agreed, mostly to have something to do besides sit in my room analyzing 12 years of marriage. 2 hours later, I stood awkwardly at the meeting point for ski lessons, feeling every bit the middle-aged accountant I was in my rented ski gear. Other tourists hurried past, confident and capable on their skis, while I clutched my poles like lifelines. You must be James Sullivan. The voice behind me carried authority wrapped in warmth, like summer honey with steel at its core. I turned and nearly lost my balance, which would have been embarrassing enough without the woman's quick reflexes saving me from falling. Careful, she smiled, steadying me with strong hands. Let's work on your stance first. Helena Virtanen stood eye level with me, which was unusual for a woman. Athletic build, blonde hair pulled back in a practical braid, and eyes the clear blue of Arctic ice. Later, I'd learned she'd won Olympic gold in downhill skiing, but in that moment, all I knew was that she radiated competence, and something else, a zest for life that seemed to brighten the already brilliant snow around us. Your form suggests you think too much, she observed, adjusting my grip on the poles. Skiing isn't about calculation. It's about feeling the mountain, trusting your instincts. I'm an accountant, I admitted. Calculation is what I do. Not today. Her smile widened. Today, you learn to let go. The next 3 hours transformed my understanding of both skiing and myself. Helena was patient, but pushed me past my comfort zone, teaching me to trust the skis, the snow, and most importantly, my own abilities. You're fighting yourself, she called as I made another overly cautious turn. The mountain isn't your enemy, James. It's your dance partner. By lunch break, I'd progressed more than in the previous 3 days of struggling on my own. We sat in the resort's cafe, steam rising from cups of strong Finnish coffee. So, Helena said, studying me with those piercing blue eyes, want to tell me what really brings an accountant to Ruka alone in peak season. I found myself telling her everything. The marriage that had grown comfortable but cold, Sarah's increasing restlessness, the prank that was really an escape plan. Ah, Helena nodded. She did you a favor. By abandoning me in Finland? By forcing you out of your comfort zone. She leaned forward. Tell me, James, when was the last time you did something that scared you? Something that made you feel truly alive? I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it. I couldn't remember. That's what I thought. Helena stood, gathering her gear. Finish your coffee. We're going to the intermediate slope. I'm not ready for that, I protested. Life doesn't wait until we're ready, she replied. Sometimes we have to jump and learn to fly on the way down. The afternoon passed in a blur of speed, snow, and surprising discovery. Yes, I fell, several times. But each time, Helena helped me up, adjusted my technique, and sent me back up the slope. By sunset, I was skiing runs I wouldn't have attempted in a month of cautious practice. You're a natural, Helena said as we watched the sky turn pink over the endless white landscape. You just needed someone to show you it's safe to take risks. Or someone to push me off the metaphorical cliff, I smiled. Sometimes those are the same thing. She pulled out her phone, checking the time. Listen, some of us are having dinner at my cabin tonight. Nothing fancy, just good food, good company, and probably too much Finnish vodka. Want to join? The old James would have declined politely, retreated to his hotel room with room service and spreadsheets. But standing there in the gathering dusk, snow in my hair and adrenaline still coursing through my veins, I wasn't quite the same person who'd woken up to that text message. I'd like that, I said. Helena's cabin turned out to be a stunning timber structure overlooking the valley. Inside, a dozen people lounged comfortably. Other ski instructors, some local artists, and a few longtime resort guests who'd become friends. They welcomed me without question, including me in their conversations that switched effortlessly between Finnish and English. So you're Helena's latest project, grinned Eric, a mountain guide with wild red hair. She has a habit of collecting strays and teaching them to fly. I help people find their wings, Helena corrected, passing me a glass of vodka. They do the flying themselves. The evening unfolded in a way that would have been impossible to calculate or predict. Someone brought out a guitar, and soon the cabin filled with music. Finnish folk songs and international hits, everyone joining in regardless of language barriers. I found myself on the cabin's deck with Helena, the northern lights dancing overhead in sheets of green and purple. Thank you, I said quietly. For today, for all of this. You did the hard part, she replied. You chose to stay when you could have rushed home. You chose to try when you could have hidden. I didn't have much choice about staying, I pointed out. We always have a choice, James. Your wife chose to leave. You're choosing what to do about it. The northern lights rippled across the sky, nature's own dance of risk and beauty. Inside the cabin, laughter and music created a warmth that had nothing to do with the roaring fireplace. 7 days, I mused. 7 days until my flight home. Helena's smile held a challenge. 7 days to discover who you are when you're not being who everyone expects you to be. She was right, of course. Sarah's prank had freed me from more than just a return flight. It had freed me from the comfortable prison of expectations. Hers, mine, society's. So, Helena said, turning to face me fully. What do you want to do with your 7 days of freedom? Looking into those clear blue eyes, I realized I had no idea. And that was exactly the point. For the first time in years, possibly decades, I was facing uncertainty not with fear, but with curiosity. I want to learn, I said finally, not just skiing. I want to learn how to live without calculating every risk, how to trust myself the way you taught me to trust the mountain. Good answer. Helena clinked her glass against mine. Lesson 1 starts tomorrow at dawn. The advanced slopes wait for no one. Inside, someone started a new song. The northern lights painted possibilities across the endless Finnish sky. And I, James Sullivan, certified public accountant and newly abandoned husband, felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Pure, unadulterated anticipation for what tomorrow might bring. Dawn painted the Finnish sky in shades of rose and gold as I met Helena at the ski lift. My muscles ached from yesterday's lessons, but beneath the soreness lurked an unfamiliar excitement. The advanced slopes loomed above us, intimidating and inviting. "Sleep well?" Helena asked, her breath visible in the crisp morning air. "Better than I should have, considering the Finnish vodka," I admitted. She laughed, the sound carrying across the empty slopes. "Good. Clear head and loose muscles, perfect for what we're attempting today." "Which is?" "Teaching you to dance with fear instead of running from it." She gestured toward the highest peak. "Up there, you can't calculate your way down. You have to feel it, trust it, embrace it." The old James would have made excuses, found logical reasons to stick to safer terrain. But something had shifted during last night's gathering in her cabin. Watching Helena and her friends live so fully, so fearlessly, had awakened something in me. "Lead the way," I said. The ride-up was silent, the early morning light revealing the mountain's majesty. Below us, the beginner slopes where I'd started looked laughably tame. "Tell me about your life back home," Helena said suddenly. "The one you're supposed to return to in 6 days." "Supposed to." She shrugged. "Life is full of possibilities. Maybe you'll go back. Maybe you'll stay. Maybe you'll find something in between." I thought about my accounting firm in Boston, the comfortable routine, the predictable patterns. I help people manage their money, plan their futures. "But what about your future?" Her gaze was sharp. "What do you want from life, James?" The question hit harder than expected. What did I want? For years, I'd focused on what others wanted: clients, Sarah, society's expectations of a successful professional. "I don't know anymore," I admitted. Good place to start. We reached the summit. Uncertainty is underrated. The view took my breath away. Endless white peaks under a crystal sky. Helena adjusted my equipment, her movements efficient but gentle. "Remember yesterday's lessons," she said. "But today, we add something new. Today, you learn to trust your instincts." What followed was both terrifying and exhilarating. Helena led me down runs that challenged everything I thought I knew about my capabilities. When I fell, she helped me up. When I hesitated, she encouraged me. When I succeeded, her smile was brighter than the snow. "You're thinking less," she observed during a brief rest. "Good. The body knows things the mind can't calculate." By midday, I was skiing runs I wouldn't have dared attempt a day ago. Not perfectly, but with growing confidence. "Time for lunch," Helena announced. "And I'm not taking you to the resort restaurant." Instead, she led me to a small cabin tucked away in the woods. Inside, an elderly Finnish woman named Maja served us hearty soup and fresh bread while telling stories about Helena's early skiing days. "This one," Maja said in accented English, "she never learned to fear, only to respect the mountain, the snow, life itself." Helena translated some of Maja's Finnish stories, tales of the mountain, of northern lights and ancient spirits, of people finding their true paths in the wilderness. "How did you know?" I asked Helena as we headed back out. "That skiing was your path." "I didn't, at first," she admitted. "I just knew that when I was on the mountain. Everything made sense. The rest of life sorted itself out around that truth." The afternoon session introduced new challenges. Helena taught me techniques for deeper snow, steeper terrain, faster descents. But more than that, she taught me to trust myself. "Your wife," she said during a lift ride, "she saw something you didn't. That I was boring, too cautious. That you were capable of more than you showed." Helena's eyes held mine. "Sometimes people leave us because they can't wait for us to become who we could be." The words stung but carried truth. Had Sarah seen potential in me that I'd buried under layers of careful calculation? As the sun began to set, Helena led me to one final run. "This one's special," she said. "No planning, no thinking, just feel your way down." The descent was magical. Powder flew around me as I followed Helena's graceful lead, my body moving with newfound instinct. For those few minutes, I understood what she meant about dancing with the mountain. We ended at a small cafe in the village, cheeks flushed from cold and exertion. "You're different today," Helena observed, studying me over her coffee cup. "Good different or bad different?" "Just different. More alive." She smiled. "What will you do with that aliveness?" Before I could answer, her phone buzzed. After reading the message, her eyes lit up. "Change of plans for tonight," she announced. "There's a traditional Finnish celebration in the village. Want to experience something completely new." Hours later, I found myself in the middle of a festival I barely understood but thoroughly enjoyed. Local families had gathered in the village square. Music playing as children ran with sparklers and adults shared warm drinks around fire pits. Helena introduced me to dozens of people, translating when needed but often leaving me to navigate cultural differences with gestures and smiles. Somehow, it worked. "See?" she said as we watched traditional dancers perform. "Some things don't need words or calculations. They just need openness to experience." The night ended with more northern lights, more stories shared around fires, and a growing realization that my life back home had been missing something essential, not just adventure, but authentic connection. 5 more days, Helena said as we walked back toward the resort. Still planning to get on that plane. I looked at her, this woman who'd shown me more about living in 2 days than I'd learned in years of careful existence. "Ask me tomorrow," I replied. Her laugh echoed in the cold night air. "Good answer, James. Very good answer." Back in my hotel room, I found myself looking at Sarah's last message differently. Maybe it hadn't been cruel. Maybe, in her own way, she'd given me a gift. The push I needed to discover who I could be when I stopped playing it safe. I fell asleep planning nothing, for once looking forward to whatever the next day might bring. The next 3 days passed in a blur of discovery. Each morning, Helena challenged me on increasingly difficult slopes, and each afternoon, she introduced me to a different facet of Finnish life. The accounting firm's calls went straight to voicemail. Sarah's message remained unanswered. "Today's different," Helena announced on our 4th morning together. She carried a backpack instead of ski gear. "We're going ski touring, climbing the mountain before skiing down." Climbing. I looked at the equipment she was laying out. Special skis with skins attached to the bottom, avalanche safety gear, and other tools I didn't recognize. "Time to truly earn your turns," she smiled, "and see parts of the mountain most tourists never experience." The ascent was grueling but rewarding. Helena taught me to read the snow, to understand wind patterns, to spot potential hazards. Everything I'd learned about calculation found new purpose in mountain safety. "See?" she said during a break. "Sometimes careful thinking keeps us alive. The trick is knowing when to calculate and when to trust." Near the summit, we reached a plateau overlooking an untouched valley. The silence was absolute, broken only by our breathing and the whisper of wind. "This is my special place," Helena said quietly. "I come here when I need to make important decisions." "And what decisions are you making now?" I asked, surprising myself with the boldness of the question. She turned to face me, her blue eyes serious. "I'm deciding whether to accept an offer to coach the national team. It would mean leaving Ruka, teaching fewer beginners, focusing on elite athletes." Sounds like a great opportunity. It is, but sometimes the obvious choice isn't the right one. She started preparing for our descent. Sometimes joy lives in unexpected places. The ski down was unlike anything I'd experienced. Untouched powder, no marked trails, just pure mountain and our own choices about how to dance with it. That evening, instead of joining the usual group at her cabin, Helena took me to a tiny restaurant in the village. The owner, an elderly man named Mikko, served us traditional Finnish dishes while telling stories about Helena's childhood. She was always different, he said in careful English, not content to stay in marked boundaries. Over dinner, Helena shared more about her life, the Olympic victories, the injuries that ended her competitive career, the discovery that teaching brought her more joy than winning ever had. Life rarely follows the planned route, she said. The magic happens in the detours. Like being abandoned in Finland? I smiled. Exactly. She raised her glass. To unplanned adventures. Later, walking through the quiet village, Helena stopped suddenly. James, why are you really still here? The question I'd been avoiding hung in the crisp night air. Because for the first time in years I feel alive, I answered honestly. Because every morning I wake up curious instead of certain. She nodded slowly. And what happens when your flight leaves in 2 days? I don't know. The truth felt liberating. Maybe that's the best part. The next morning, Helena was unusually quiet as we rode the lift. At the summit, she turned to me with determination in her eyes. Today's your test, she announced. You're skying the Black Diamond Run. Alone. What? But you always. Some lessons we have to learn by ourselves. She pointed to a distant lift. I'll meet you at the bottom. Trust yourself, James. You're ready. Standing alone at the top of the most challenging run I'd ever faced, I felt fear mix with excitement. The old James would have found a safer alternative. The new James clicked into his bindings and took a deep breath. The descent was both terrifying and perfect. Every lesson Helena had taught me came together. When to plan, when to trust, when to let go and dance with gravity. I fell twice, but got up laughing. Helena was waiting at the bottom, her smile radiant. I knew you could do it. You knew before I did. Sometimes we all need someone to believe in us before we can believe in ourselves. She checked her watch. One more surprise for your last full day. That evening, she took me to a traditional Finnish sauna by a frozen lake. The ritual of alternating between intense heat and brief plunges into the icy water was a perfect metaphor for what the week had taught me about embracing extremes. Under the stars, wrapped in warm robes, we talked about choices and changes. I decided about the coaching position, Helena said. And I'm staying here. Elite coaching isn't my path. Teaching people like you. Helping them discover themselves through the mountain. That's where my joy lives. The northern lights appeared, dancing across the sky in celebration. What about you, James? Have you decided? I looked at the woman who taught me so much more than skiing, at the lights above us, at the mountain that had become a teacher. I'm taking a leave of absence from the firm, I said. There's a lot more I need to learn about living. Helena's smile held understanding and something more. The mountain will be here. And its best teacher. She's not going anywhere. We sat in comfortable silence, watching nature's light show, both knowing that sometimes the best adventures start with a seemingly cruel prank and end with discovering exactly where you need to be. Tomorrow would bring decisions about flights and futures, but tonight was for celebrating the joy of uncertain paths and unplanned destinations. Thank you, I said simply. Helena understood all I meant. Thank you for being brave enough to stay. Above us, the lights danced on, painting possibilities across the Finnish sky. On what should have been my last morning in Finland, I stood at the hotel checkout desk with my unpacked bags still in the room. The clerk waited patiently as I stared at my return ticket to Boston. Problems with your flight, sir? She asked kindly. No. I smiled. Just finally understanding there are more important things than keeping to a schedule. I pulled out my phone and made 2 calls. The first was to my law firm's HR department, requesting an extended leave of absence. The second was to Sarah. I got your wake-up call, I said when she answered. And you were right. I needed it. The divorce papers can go through. I hope you find what you're looking for. James? Her voice held surprise. You sound different. I am different. Thank you for that, actually. Helena was waiting outside, dressed in her instructor gear despite the fact that we had no lesson scheduled. So, she asked, though her smile suggested she already knew my decision. I booked a cabin for the next month, I replied. The mountain still has a lot to teach me. Her laugh echoed across the morning snow. The mountain or the teacher? Both, I hope. We took the first lift up, the rising sun painting the world in possibilities. At the summit, Helena pointed to a distant peak we hadn't yet explored. That's your next challenge, she said. But first, you need to learn about avalanche safety, advanced navigation, and how to read weather patterns. More calculations, I teased. Some things deserve careful planning, she replied, her eyes meeting mine. Especially the most important adventures. Over the next hour, we skied in comfortable silence, finding our rhythm together on familiar runs. At the bottom, Helena's fellow instructors were waiting with knowing smiles. We're having a traditional Finnish engagement party tonight, Eric announced. For Marta and Jukka, you'll join us. Wouldn't miss it, I replied, catching Helena's approving glance. Later, as we prepared for the celebration, Helena handed me a small package. What's this? Open it. Inside was a compass, beautifully crafted with Finnish designs. Because sometimes, she said softly, we need help finding true north. The engagement party was held in the village square, with bonfires and music, traditional food, and flowing vodka. I watched Helena dance with the children, teaching them the steps to old Finnish folk dances, her joy infectious. She's different with you, Maija said, appearing beside me. More anchored, yet more free. She taught me that those aren't opposites, I replied. Sometimes being anchored gives you the freedom to fly. As the northern lights appeared once again, Helena joined me by the fire. No regrets? She asked. About staying. Only that it took someone abandoning me in Finland to help me find myself. She took my hand, her grip strong and sure, like her presence in my life. Sometimes, she said, we have to lose our old path to find our true one. The lights danced overhead, the music played on, and the future stretched before us like an untouched slope, challenging, exciting, and full of possibilities. So, Helena smiled, ready for tomorrow's lesson. With you as my teacher, always. The villagers raised their glasses in another toast to the engaged couple, but I was toasting something else, the end of careful calculation, the beginning of trusted instinct, and the beautiful dance between the two. In my pocket, the compass pointed north, but my heart had already found its true direction in the snowy peaks of Finland and the blue eyes of the woman who taught me to embrace the fall. Sarah's prank had given me an unexpected gift, the courage to step off my carefully planned path and discover where true joy lived. It wasn't in the safe harbors of Boston's financial district, but here in the wild beauty of the Finnish wilderness, learning to dance with mountains and trust in unplanned adventures. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new runs to master, new skills to learn. But for now, under the magical Nordic sky, I was exactly where I needed to be, found, rather than lost, in the detour that had become my destination.